So good afternoon, sir. I'll do this very quickly because we have a meeting. But you're on the board of directors, board of governors for IIT Madras, and you've been to multiple IITs and engineering colleges in the country and outside. How do you feel that IITGN is different from all of them?
See, every institution has a different culture and a different philosophy of how education must be handled. So from my understanding of IITGN, the flexibility that you have in terms of the type of courses that you can take, the focus on some of the humanities courses. Right now, it's a much smaller IIT, so there is a closeness amongst the faculty and students. So there are various things that make it unique, and that uniqueness actually is the strength also. So that is what I see as different. Of course, in physical location and the structure of the institute, there are differences. So for example, IIT Madras is in a nature park. Here you are actually on the banks of Senapathy river. So every IIT has a distinct physical character also, and that again makes it different.
Having been one of the architects of the Indian IT industry and obviously Infosys, you have seen a lot of, and running Axilor Ventures, you have seen a lot of companies, a lot of institutions rise. We are at a very critical stage right now. We're 8 years old. I would say we're at the tipping point. So what advice would you give to the people who are running IITGN, which is the faculty, the staff, everyone, and to the students? How should we go from here and become the best institute in the world?
I think you are on your way to become one of the best institutions in the world. First and foremost is the desire to become one of the best, and then work towards that, and I think you're clearly doing that. Second, I strongly believe that leadership makes a difference. So you have in Professor Jain as a leader who is visionary, and you can see that in the way the institute has developed actually. You need continuity of leadership, and especially in early stages, if the same person continues, it does help. I know. Of course, this has to fit into the overall administration and management of IITs, etc. But if that is possible, then there is a opportunity to make sure that the same leadership continues for some time. When it comes to the students, of course, students stay here only for a fixed period. After that, they leave. But during the time that they stay, I think they need to think about institution building. I believe that it's a great opportunity for them to experience and learn, because this is something that will be of value to them when on their own they want to build an institution, or they join an organization that needs to think about the longer period and longer term. Every institution survives human beings, because institutions can stay on for hundreds of years, whereas we as human beings, definitely we live 100, most probably less than 100, right? So we need to have that kind of thinking when you look at an organization, and that's an opportunity for students actually to think long term and understand what does that mean. How do you translate that on your day-to-day behavior, on the decisions that you make, etc. So for example, I was told that the hostel, etc. is completely managed by students. I think it's a wonderful example of getting the students involved and learning the necessary skills in institution building. So it's actually nice to see these things here.
Thank you, sir. My other question is related to machine learning. So the progress in machine learning is leading to a lot of automation, and robots. So robots and artificial intelligence are developing at a very rapid pace, and they are having and will have a huge impact on employment. What is your take on this, and how can we as students be prepared for this huge transformation in the world?
See, this is not actually new. This has been happening from the beginning of history of human beings in the world. So, for example, the number of people dependent on agriculture is coming down. In the US, a developed economy, the number of people dependent on agriculture is 2%. You look back 200 years, 60% of the people who are dependent on agriculture in the US, where India is today. 60% of people in India are dependent on agriculture. As we develop into a economy that's more, let's say modern, more developed, the number of people dependent on agriculture will come down. They will be shifted into other parts of the economy. Manufacturing will come down, and if you look at US today, 85% of the people are dependent on services, and there is very little manufacturing happening. So these transitions happen in every society. These transitions happen because of change in technology. Today, there is nothing called a typist, right? Because all of us now can, create these documents using computers, in a beautiful way. So this is a continuous transition that happens in society as technology evolves. Now, what is needed when something like this happens? You need to understand where a particular industry is going to move to, and make sure that you have the right skills necessary to participate in the new jobs that would be created. So in some sense, anticipate where things would move. So for example, if you take cars themselves, right? The manufacturing of cars is probably all going to be automated and using robots. Less number of people are required. But in the programming of these cars, large number of people will be required. And so, the software development, etc., will require significant number of people. Similarly, there's a lot of electronics in these cars now. It's got probably 30 to 50 computers in it actually. So the designing those chips, manufacturing of those chips will require again people. Designing the factories will require people. So if you understand how these transitions happen, then you can make sure that you have the skill set necessary to find jobs in those things. When IT revolution started in the 60s, etc., a lot of people expected jobs to decline. But actually jobs have increased, and 4 million new jobs were created in the IT in India, right? So I think you have to just anticipate where industry is going and make sure that you're prepared to take advantage of that. These newer jobs are actually probably more interesting than some of the older jobs.
So coming to Axilor Ventures and the whole entrepreneurship environment in India. Recently, as per what news says, is that the entrepreneurship bubble in India is bursting. The valuations have been going down. There are startups which are failing now, running out of cash. What is lacking in what? So there are two parts of the question. What does India have, or what advantages does the Indian entrepreneurship environment have, and what is lacking in it?
See, first of all, these are cycles, and these cycles will happen. Okay, it's not that every startup is going to become successful. If you look at literature, it will tell you that 80%, maybe 70% at least, are going to fail or may do just marginally well, not become another Google or another Facebook or etc. And even in the US, there's only one Google or one Facebook, right? So these are part of the entrepreneurial ecosystem that exists in any region, any geography, any country. And we need to understand that and accept that. What is important is to, a company may fail. An entrepreneur, I believe, never fails. Because from this failure, you learn, you become stronger, and hopefully you will start another business. And that business will become successful because you have these learnings. So as a society, as a culture, we need to clearly say that these are part of the the cycles of entrepreneurship, And business has failed, but entrepreneur has not failed. You know, he or she will actually come back and start something successful. Steve Jobs, right? Wonderful example. He introduced the Macintosh computer and got fired from the business. He's the founder of Apple. So these are things that happen, and we need to accept that. But there is a cost to the society from this, and how the society handles is very, very important. So what is needed from the government perspective is to make sure that one, it's easy to close down a business, it is easy to start a business, the cost of doing these things are very, very low, such that we can fail and come back again. We need to clearly say that as a culture we accept failure, and we will learn from the failure and go forward. We need to make sure that nobody is hurt when these things happen. And that's why if you're going to look at a startup that is going to scale up significantly, you use external funding than your own funding or your family's funding to make that scale up happen. That's why VCs are there. They clearly understand that this is very risky, that it's possible that you will lose that money. But they're willing to accept that, because if they invest in 10 companies, one company will do well and they get back all the money. So you have to ensure that the ecosystem exists, including the venture capital, the ease of doing business, etc., to make sure that these things are taken care of. And see, every startup is not going to take venture funding. So if you if you're creating a new business and it does not require venture funding, you need to drive towards profitability as quickly as possible. This will ensure that the failure won't happen. So there are many things that we need to do and understand in order to make sure that this is not going to hurt the individual, the entrepreneur, or society. I think this is important for us to do so that these cycles can be absorbed.
Sir, one final question. Just take a photo later. So, apart from the business and career side, while preparing for this interview, I was reading about how Infosys, and this is a very famous story, that all of your wives came up with the initial seed money to start Infosys, and how your wives and daughters and sons are still very involved with whatever you do. So, what personal or what advice would you give to a student graduating right now on how to choose a partner in life?
First of all, because Infosys was founded by 7 people, they are not related to each other. They were friends. They were working together. Yes, we took help from our spouses, their families, to invest in the business. We took money, but we made sure that they are not involved in the business. Right? If we had allowed our families to get involved, 7 different families all fighting with each other for who has got a better position, etc., would have actually created havoc in the business. So we early on decided that we will not involve our families in our business. So our children, our spouses are not involved in the business actually. Now, in order to choose a partner, my advice, it's actually something I don't think I can give an advice, because this is very personal. What you need to probably think about is somebody you are comfortable with, somebody you can spend the rest of your life, maybe get to know the person, understand the person, make sure that this is a decision that you take very carefully. And second, you must commit yourself to that relationship and commit yourself to adjust. Relationships are about both sides adjusting to make it work. I can tell you, 7 people coming together, starting Infosys, we have been together for the past 35 years, and the reason why we have been together is because we respect each other and adjust. We make sure that we give space for everybody. We make sure that if there are differences, we discuss, debate, and conclude, and the next transaction starts again from zero. We don't carry these things forward. Same thing is true for relationships also. So, you have to make a choice and you decide to commit to somebody. Also commit saying that I will make this relationship work, come what may. And if you have children, then it's all the more important that you have to make the relationship work. And if both the people commit to making the relationship work, it will work. Right? So that's very, very important. And that's how we make relationships work.
Thank you, sir. It's been lovely talking to you.